Good evening and welcome to the Lower Frederick Township Board of Supervisors General Meeting. It is April 2nd, 2024. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to forgo reading the announcements. They're all on your agendas. So we can get to the main event of the evening, which is the appointment of our new police chief in Lower Frederick, Sergeant Brian Cass.
Yes. Yep, that's what I'm trying to. Please post. Got all dressed up for you, so. All right, you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
Please raise your right hand. I, Brian David Cass, do solemnly swear
I, Brian David Cash, do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Pennsylvania.
I will support, defend, obey and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Pennsylvania.
And that I will discharge the duties of Chief of Police of Lower Frederick Township, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, with fidelity.
I will discharge the duties of Lower Frederick Police Chief, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, with fidelity.
I further swear that I will enforce the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania
I further swear that I will enforce the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania
and the ordinances of Lower Frederick Township, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, to the best of my ability.
and the ordinances of Lower Frederick Township, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, to the best of my ability.
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all duties
I will faithfully and impartially discharge all duties
incumbent upon me as Chief of Police,
incumbent upon me as Chief of Police,
according to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God.
Not going well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Yeah, the last time our parking lot was this full, I think we had a protest, so this is better, to have people here for a good reason.
No, he reads the whole thing. All right, whatever. Good point. All right, coverage area.
Yeah, you probably all thought we were in big trouble, huh, with all these police officers in the room. Okay, now we're going to move on to administrative actions, meeting minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve: December 5th, 2023, December 21st, 2023, and January 2nd, 2024, which was our combined reorganization and general meeting. Does anyone have any additional edits or changes they want to add?
I wasn't on the board for these two. Should I even?
You can still vote. Is it acceptable for the board if we address them all as a group? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve these 3 sets of minutes?
Chuck Yeiser will make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so Supervisor Yeiser made the motion, Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Treasurer's report?
Okay, so this is the treasurer's report through March 31st, 2024. General fund budget performance, EAT, we ended the month at $255,938, which was $2,200 under budget, down 0.9% from last year. Real estate transfer, we ended the month at $39,827, which was $3,871 under budget, down 51% from last year. And our current delinquent real estate tax was at $101,937, $2,500 under budget, down 2.5 from last year. Overall, total revenue is $445,208, which is $4719 under budget, down 11.6% from last year. Total expenses, $769,858, which is $25,000 under budget. It's up 47.9% from 2023. The net income as of March 31st for the general fund is negative $324,650. Township's budget net income is $339,322. Performance is under budget by 4.3% through the first quarter of 2024. Revenue is below budget by 2.3%. The township is running slightly below budget except for interest, We have received 18.5% of our 2024 budget revenue. Township expenses are on or close to budget for most line items. Expenses are below budget by 4.2%. Expenses are under primarily for legal and engineering services, public works wages, and over for building and public works vehicle repair, police operating equipment, and chief wages. We spent 27.1% of our 2024 budgeted expense. Overall, the township performance is down 642% from last year. This is primarily due to having 2 more employees that we did not have in the first quarter of 2023 and the capital purchase we've had this year. As to the capital reserve, so far in 2024, we've received 1 dump truck for public works and 2 vehicles for the police department. Total expense is $212,079, and $200,000 has been transferred from the general fund to the capital reserve. Sewer fund, sewer rental, sewer use charge is 1.9% over budget, with sewer revenue surpassing budget by 88.5% for primarily for interest. We've received 15 sewage connection tapping fees so far in 2024 as part of the Fulmer Road, Riverside Avenue sewer extension connections. Expenses are on or below budget for most line items. Sludge hauling, supplies, chemicals, sewer line extension, insurance bonding are over budget. Sewer expenses are under budget by 1.6%. Overall, net income is $221,797, which is $50,000 over budget. The fund has earned 29% of its revenue budget and spent 10% of its expense budget. Liquid fuels, we've had multiple snow events over the first quarter of the year. The fund has already surpassed its budget for interest. We budgeted to receive our liquid fuels and tax in March, but we were scheduled to receive this on April 4th. The fund is $4,097 over for expenses and has earned 8.1% of its revenue budget and spent 9.4% of its expense budget. The actual net income so far for 2024 is negative $23,659. Open space, the net income is $23,797. Total available dollars with current allocation for property conservation easement grant and county agricultural preservation is $180,903. Expenses so far have been for EIT commission and appraisals. ARPA COVID Relief Fund, the total available dollars with current allocation for the Monco 2040 grant is $269,638. There has been no expenses so far in 2024. And our 2023 audit will be submitted this week. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Just a comment on the first page of the report, under total revenue.
Yes.
I think the 2022, that should say 2023, right?
Correct, thank you. Yes, that was a typo.
Otherwise, it's great report, I think.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, so we're going to move on to the payment of bills. Do we have any that we need to take out?
Yes, there is an invoice for $125 to Saks Garage that was out of the general fund.
Okay, so we can have 2 votes then, 1 for everything else, and then so do we need to subtract that out then?
If you have your bills list cover sheet, those amounts are correct. So what's different is what's on the agenda.
Okay, so it should be 81,598.82.
Yes, that's the correct amount
Okay,
for,
super. All right, so we have bills in the general fund in the amount of $81,590, I left a number out, $598.82. In the capital reserve fund, $63,338. In the sewer fund, $33,559.70. In the sewer capital fund, $38,691.60. And in liquid fuels, or $20,654.23. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to pay all of those bills. And Supervisor Sachs, you can participate in this. We've taken yours out. Do I have a second? Thank you. So Supervisor Hexter made the motion. Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes
Aye.
unanimously.
A little late, sorry.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. And now we need a second vote to pay the $125 to the Saks Garage out of the general fund.
I will abstain from that.
Thank you, and Supervisor Saks will be recusing himself. Do I have a motion to pay that bill?
I'll second.
Thank you. So Supervisor Byrd made the motion, and Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously with 4 votes, and Supervisor Saks recusing himself. Thank you. This leads us to professional staff reports. Engineer?
Thank you. The Melbourne Hill development, just an update for the board. DEP approved sewage planning this month, but with that approval, DEP directed them to obtain another permit for the low-pressure force main, so that is still ongoing. At the Prestige development, also known as the Saishaki Tract or Farmview Estates, we are still waiting, they are still awaiting the County Conservation District and DEP approval of their NPDES permit plans. AT&T and the builder were working last week to relocate the communications cable so that the easement can be relocated. At 1467 Gravel Pike, or the Lechmar project, the limit of disturbance was delineated by survey, and the contractor began installation of erosion and sediment filters. As far as public projects, the Zieglerville Road Drainage Project was scheduled to start this week, but the rain has pushed back the schedule, so that's going to be delayed by weather. The Springmount Road Sidewalk Project, we have been meeting with property owners to obtain the easements necessary to complete the project. And for Zieglerville Road pavement repairs, we are preparing bid documents for this project as authorized at your last meeting. In the Meng Road Special Study, site visits are ongoing to document existing conditions. The residents have been very helpful, and to date, we have visited 22 of 30 properties. There may have been a couple more since this report was sent. The purpose of this visit is to identify potential issues of concern with the on-lot systems, and it's a necessary step in the needs assessment. The other items in my report, there's no change to the description since last report, so if it pleases the board, I'll stop there. And lastly, when we get to the point on the agenda to talk about flood barriers, I'll address that.
Thank you. Just a question, has the rain impacted the relocation of the AT&T easement on the Prestige development?
My understanding is the cable has been relocated, but they still need to get back in there to finish backfilling the trench and stabilizing everything.
So that sounds like maybe a yes.
They're close, but they have a little to finish up, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to solicitor report.
Nothing.
All right, that was easy. Police, do we have a police report? Do you have a written report from the police?
Yes. I guess I'll go over his cover page. Call for services for March 2024 was 236. Traffic citations issued were 28. 6 for school zone, 12 for speeding, 2 for stop sign, 8 for other vehicle violations. Speed-related data is provided for 2 areas of the township which the police department received complaints of excessive speed. Mang Delphi Road, which is a 30-mile-an-hour zone. Average speed was 32.87 miles per hour. Maximum recorded was 58. In the 100 block of Big Road, which is a 35-mile-an-hour zone, Average speed was 38.71 miles per hour. Maximum speed was 77. The police department completed background investigations of the eligible candidates, and conditional offer has been made to one of the candidates pending the completion of a physical and psychological examination. The new police vehicles have been put into service, as you are aware. The police department has received positive feedback with the change in vehicle graphics. Officers attended training related to the fentanyl crisis and other illegal drugs. Officers attended training on interdiction techniques, tactics for drug trafficking and human smuggling. And the police department has ongoing open investigations that cannot be discussed at the present time. There is one investigation that has been concluded, and the news release has been included in this report.
Thank you, and we're hopeful to have our new police officer on board in May, or soon, or maybe by the end of the month.
It should be formally announced. The hope would be at the May general meeting, yes.
Okay, great, so coming soon. Fire company?
Good evening. Hey, there we go. So good evening. For the month of March, there were 15 calls of service for the fire department that we handled. 5 of them were in Lower Frederick Township. And I'm going to be emailing over, we have a new report format that outlines a little bit more information for you guys. We're starting to keep track of a little bit more stuff. So just I'm a numbers nerd, and it puts things into a little bit of perspective. Those 15 calls that we handled in the month of March totaled 24 hours and 23 minutes of man hours in service. We have accumulated up to 164 hours almost for the year. And in the month of March alone, we held multiple training events. We've had an acquired structure in Lower Salford Township that we've been training in. And we've accumulated 379 hours of training alone in the month of March, which is pretty impressive. That's all volunteer hours that our firefighters are giving back. Upcoming events, I think I mentioned this last month, but our cornhole tournament is April 20th. You can register online. I know a few people have registered already, so we're still accepting teams for our cornhole tournament on the 20th. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Do we have an ambulance report?
Okay, so I actually have February and March. I
Oh, great.
received March today, so I thought I would add it. So for the following number of calls for February 2024, they performed 19 total in Lower Frederick Township, 41 total to date. In their primary coverage area, which is Limerick, Perkiomen, Schwenksville, Upper Frederick, and Upper Salford, they had 75 in the month of March, and at the end of that month, they were at 158. Mutual aid, which is outside their primary coverage, they had 39 total in the month of February and 78 year to date. For the month of March, they had 18 service calls in Lower Frederick for a total of 59 through the end of March. 67 in their primary coverage area, bringing that total to 225. And they had 40 total outside their primary coverage area for a year-to-date total of 118.
Thank you. Public Works?
Okay, so for the month of March, they did 3 sump pump UNO inspections. They cold patched potholes, serviced their mowers, fixed the deer fence in Cuddy Park, replaced stop street and speed limit signs, attended the pre-bid meeting for the flood barriers at the sewer plant, and swept parking lot of Coble Park. And this is work in addition to their routine operations for the month.
Thank you. Any questions from the board, any of this? Nope. Okay, that brings us to Township Board and Commission reports, EAC. Is anyone here for the EAC? Gary, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, sorry. Steve Lineski from the EAC. We had our last meeting on March 18th, and the working groups gave an update on their progress. The first working group is a EV charging station working group for there at the township building that would service local residents. Currently, there are not any active grants for level 2 charging stations, since federal and state funds are going to major corridors right now to focus on fast charging stations on those major corridors. And since Spring Mountain Road is not considered a major corridor, surprise, we will be we'll keep monitoring for the next cycle of grants. The Green Energy Working Group is assembling solar, geothermal, and wind model ordinances to be explored by our sustainability group for possible future implementation. The value of green energy conservation through roof wall and window insulation was discussed. Tax credits are available to offset these costs for insulation upgrades, and the need to bring this information to the public was highlighted, and we'll move forward with that. John, Diane, and myself attended the Perkioga Watershed Conservancy Stormwater Management Symposium at Ursinus on March 8th. There were 8 sessions with subjects ranging from illicit discharge detection and elimination, the role of the Montgomery County Conservation District, and new PFAS or forever chemical testing regulations. A presentation was given regarding the Dauphin County Stormwater Regional Management Program, and it demonstrates how multiple communities can work together to help alleviate stormwater runoff and flooding across multiple municipalities. And this allows them to share their unique resources, such as floodplains, wetlands, and areas to build infiltration basins. Crystal and Drew spoke in a later session about our 4-county Perkioga Watershed Initiative mapping and flood reduction study. The PWC also covered their offerings to their benefactor municipalities, which we are one of, and the EAC is discussed taking advantage of their BMPs or best management practices. They are willing to come out and work through stuff with us. There are grants available, and we will explore further BMPs moving forward. The Outdoor Lighting Working Group reported that modeling light ordinances are much less available compared to the solar and wind, and we'll keep searching for model ordinances for possible implementation. This month's Did You Know topic was a link to explore bird-friendly lighting, and reducing light pollution during spring and fall bird migrations is important to decrease bird fatalities. We also discussed films that can be applied to your windows and doors to help prevent bird strikes. We are now a bird town, and Bird Town reported that due to all the initiatives by our Park Board, EAC, and Bird Town Group, that in 2023, we've gone from green to silver status in just 1 year. Thank you to the road crew for installing our Bird Town signs, and keep an eye out for them around town to take note that we are a bird town community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Nope. Great. You guys had a busy meeting. Open Space Committee?
How's that? Andrew Lang could not be here tonight, so I'll report for the committee. We had a short public component. We met on March the 13th. We had an informational from Jason on available funds to the committee for the acquisition of properties in the township and preservation of properties in the township. It totaled that at that present time, we had $171,634 available. As you heard in tonight's report, that's a growing fund, so it's actually increased in value between then and now. And Jason also mentioned that the funds would have an expenditure of about $25,500 for associated costs with the preservation of the Barber property, but they're recoverable costs in the grant application. So we'll be getting back the money that's laid out to fulfill that obligation. We also discussed the housing and storage of materials that we would need for evaluating properties and cataloging work that we've done in there in the meeting room, in the front meeting room. So that was the other item that was presented and discussed at the meeting in the public component. The rest of the meeting was spent in an executive session discussing individual properties, which we're not at liberty to disclose here tonight. I'm also going to handle our next agenda item, which is the Planning Commission update from March the 21st. The Planning Commission met. We had an informational from Crystal Gilchrist, our Vice Chair, about activities of the Central Perkiomen Valley Regional Planning Commission. Get my little cheat sheet out here. We discussed and had a review of 3 items from her. There was discussion of the intersection improvements at Park and Main Street in Schwanksville Borough. As most people know living in our community, that's a problematic intersection that impacts Lower Frederick as well as the borough. It has alignment problems, drainage problems, connection problems, et cetera. So they're in the process of now tackling that big project, and it's being discussed at the regional planning level as well as within their borough. The county is also, or the Planning Commission at the regional level is also discussing a letter of support for opening the Old Gravel Pike Bridge in Lower Frederick Township to public access. Their feeling was that the county has invested a lot of money in the restoration of that bridge, public dollars incidentally, and the public should have some access to that. So they're looking to put together some kind of letter to go to the county commissioners, petitioning them to have that publicly accessible to in the near future. There was also an informational about the artisan land development, which is out on our southern end towards Centennial and Smith Road. It actually is a project that will involve 3 townships. You'll probably hear more about that in the coming months, but there was just a brief informational about their discussions at the regional level on that topic. The Planning Commission, or local Planning Commission, went on to have a conversation about, well, actually an informational from the Parks and Recreation Board pertaining to the grant application that they're currently placing for monies to do a phase 1 project at Coble Park. They came giving us an informational, but also requesting a letter of support, which the Planning Commission unanimously supported, and we drafted and provided the township with a copy of that letter for their use in the grant application. The Planning Commission went on to talk about the Delphi to Schwanksville connection. That's the connection we're hoping to be able to realize between Delphi Village and Schwanksville Borough for the public use using the old Perkiomen Railroad bed. We have discussed that at length up to this point. We're looking to propose to the county that they come to, I guess, a conclusion on their investigation as quickly as possible about who actually owns that railroad bed. There seems to be some debate as to whether or not the county actually owns it. Once that's done, we hope to be able to, engage with them with the possibility of opening that up as quickly as possible, perhaps using 2 phases in order to do that, one of which would be we'll call it a temporary opening, which would facilitate the safe passage of people to and from those areas, but not have it done to the standards that the county expects to do when they eventually hope to produce their circuit trail, the Sunrise Trail. So we're doing some exploratory work with discussing that, and hopefully the county planner comes back with some of the concerns that the county has, and some of those issues will be discussed at our future meetings. The other things that I think are worth noting here, we're also asking the county planner to provide us with, some suggestions and some background on ways that we can refine and update our 2015 connections map. That had, kind of gotten to the point that we have some areas in which need updating and review. We'll be looking at that in the near future. And then finally, that's pretty much the extent of it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I had a question, but I'm just going to, if it's okay, I appreciate Crystal giving the Perkiomen Valley Regional Planning Commission a plug. I'm going to just add to that report. The Regional Planning Commission is currently working on an update to the comprehensive plan, and the chapter we're going to look at next is transportation. So we all have the same kind of challenges in the area. I think that's going to be really important to look at our region and how we move and where the traffic goes and what our needs are. And I also wanted to add that we have a emergency management working group that came out of a need for emergency services to have a safe route when we have weather events or other emergency events. And so what they are looking at is, should there be another event like Hurricane Ida or some other catastrophic event, what is the best route for emergency services to take to move around the area to get to people? And then what upgrades need to be made to bridges or roads on that route, so at least there's one place where people can go safely. I think that's a really important initiative, and fortunately we haven't had to deal with it.
Good information. Certainly coming over tonight and looking at the swamp headed up to flood stage and the rain forecast for the next couple of days, it's probably well worth their while to look into that. Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions or comments from the board? No. All right, thank you. Park and Recreation Board.
Good evening. We had a record egg hunt last Saturday, highest attendance ever. We thank the Public Works Group, especially RJ, for helping with setup and getting us prepared in the morning. And we thank Engage Arts for their face painting support and Spring Mountain Day Camp. I think their presence there, especially the balloon artists, were real hits at the event. So successful outreach, and we're being more successful at engaging our local companies and other operations along with our events. So that's part of what we're targeting. So we're getting there. We're working on it. Our next event is Spring Festival at Cuddy Park on Saturday, May 4th, 10 to 2. The key topic of the overall outreach is rain gardens as solutions. If you've got wet areas in your yard, we'll have two speakers, two master gardeners talking on rain gardens, how to construct one. We'll also be giving a tour of the demonstration rain garden that we have there at Cuddy Park. We'll also, the EAC, because we're Bird Town, in support of that, the EAC is supplying a speaker on providing environment and housing for birds. And they will also be tabling there with Bird Town information as well. We'll also have Ask a Master Gardener table. We'll have a library tabling, lots of activities for the kids. Seed bombs again, and lots of activities for the kids and the sensory bins and things like that that they can do. We'll have face painting again. This year we've added a native plant sale with Bemerwald Nursery, which will be, I think, bring a lot of people in. And we gratefully thank Public Works, especially Tom Manning, for again allowing us to use his trailer to haul all of our loot to get over to the park to pull this whole thing off. So we appreciate that. None of this happens as one person. It's all teamwork, and we're pretty good at that. We've got a good team here in the township. We get it done. Just as a reminder, the PWC stream cleanup is Saturday, April 13th from 9 to noon. There are several locations in Lower Frederick Township. Some of them still need manning, so if you still have an interest and have the time, go on site at the PWC, and they're all indicated where the sites are. We are on track for our application for the DCED Greenways Grant to be submitted by May 31st for the Phase 1 of the Coble Park Rehabilitation Project. We thank the Planning Commission for their support in writing the letter. The board will be seeing later on tonight their piece of that documentation in support of this. We are also working, Katie Lewis, our vice chair, has been working on the online questionnaire to gather public comment and to allow comment also on the equipment to be put into the playground. She went through that in our meeting last night in some detail. We released the draft to the park board today for review and for troubleshooting. And we intend to have that up and running on probably the township website within the next 2 months. That's really very early, but gathering that information now, we'll probably be looking at building that playground in a couple of years. Having that information now allows us to plan and restructure what that plan looks like for the playground, get it costed out, and gives us time to work on that. So it's early, but it's not early on this big piece of this big project. We have 2 new initiatives I'd just like to bring out to the public awareness. We are starting a book club. Last night we voted the first book will be The Berry Pickers, which is an award-winning book, if you're not familiar with, by Amanda Peters. Becky will be posting out information on when and where, but we're going to get together probably at Cuddy Park. And we've also made arrangements for free food and refreshments. So if nothing more brings you out, good talk about a book and free food. We are also planning, looking at working dates and routes for a Perkiomen Railroad Trail Walk led by the Perkiomen Railroad Society. We anticipate this will be the first of a series of walks in the township. We've got a lot of interesting places where we could have manned walks. And we have ideas among ourselves, but anyone else has ideas of where to walk and people who may want to lead those walks, suggestions are welcomed. So we're going to start a trail walking group. We're trying to figure out what to call ourselves. So we're trying to get a cute name for Lower Frederick walkers. So we'll get there. And finally, if you spend any time over at Cuddy Park and you run into dog owners, we hear a lot of complaints. The Cuddy Dog Park has suffered for many years with poor drainage, especially in the dog run area. It gets very muddy and it's actually not available for use, not easy to use without a lot of mud and dirty doggy feet and dirty cars several months of the year. And as I said, we are hearing that from the complaints from our users at the park. So I would request, last night we voted on it in the park board, and we are requesting of the board tonight to approve, to authorize Carol to look at the situation and possibly make recommendations for corrective action. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
I remember years ago, and I don't know if you remember this as well, maybe some other people will, that we talked about just that issue. And one solution that was put forward was to have one side closed while grass was growing. So kind of alternate using the 2 different sides. Does that ring a bell with anybody here?
I understand, yeah, that might help somewhat, but it's really a drainage issue. We have water pooling in front of the concrete pads that are at the base of each of those runs. It's more than just, lack of grass cover. Now, I know there are some other materials and grass covers that are used in dog parks. I'm not expert at that, but having doing some, research on Google, there are other materials and other ways to plant them. I think, in all of our parks, we suffer just because of the type of soils we have and over time compression that, all of our parks would do well with core aeration, would help a little bit, but that's not going to get us where we need to go with healthy sod there. So we might be looking at some different underlayment or different types of materials under there, but better drainage than what we have now. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Pam, did you say that you were coming before the board tonight?
We're asking, we voted last night at the park board and Jason was there and I asked Jason if it was okay to do that tonight. So what we're asking tonight is just for approval for Carol, I guess, to provide an estimate of what it would cost for her to do an evaluation and come up with possible some ideas.
So I'm going to ask our attorney to correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw that there is a pretty recent court case challenging the ability to add something to an agenda based on the 2021 update of the Sunshine Act, unless it was either an emergency or a safety issue. Am I correct or not correct?
Yes, no, basically the Commonwealth Court ruling made it almost an impossibility to add anything at this point in
Okay.
time. That is being appealed to the state Supreme Court, so we'll see what happens. But on the basis of this request, it's something that needs to be pushed off to the next
I'm happy to
meeting.
do that. That's fine. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's fine for the
but
clarification. Thank you.
we don't want to get into any legal issues, so
No.
we can put it on the work session.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
There is a Zoom issue.
What?
For the ordinance. It was an issue last night trying to get on Zoom, and when I finally got through to Zoom, it wasn't working. So there's a Zoom problem that.
Sorry, are you making a public comment?
No, I'm responding to the Parks Board.
Oh, okay.
So you couldn't get on last night to listen to the Parks Board, is what I'm trying to say, so.
We had a problem. The laptop wasn't set up well, and I found Zoom, and I got up on it, and we had a couple of people that were online, and I brought them on, and it kicked them off a couple of times, and it's very difficult when you're running a meeting, also be running Zoom, but we also didn't have video on it, and it wasn't quite set up right. That's probably my fault, but, it's something that needs a little more finesse when we're setting up for meetings to have that ready to go. It's not a big deal, just.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's looks like there's no questions on Zoom, we're going to move on to the business portion of our meeting. First item is the Sandbrook subdivision discussion. Who's going to take that?
So why don't I just start out with a little background to
Thank you,
refresh the
Carol.
board's memory. This is a 3-lot subdivision that was substantially constructed in 2021. And the two new lots are called Lot 2 and Lot 3. And Lot 2 is lower than Lot 3. And we have a problem with water continually flowing across the Lot 2 driveway, which is the result of a swale that comes out between Lot 2 and Lot 3 that was not shown on the original development plans. So we talked about the need for a pipe or other way to manage the water at this driveway. This was discussed in detail, both when the resident came before the board to show you pictures of icing on the driveway and the continuous flow. And then again, approximately a year ago, it was March of last year, that the developer came before you to request a waiver of the requirement to install that pipe, and that was not granted. So from there, I'll turn it over to our solicitor, Mr. Nelson.
So Mr. Sandbrick came to a meeting a few months ago. Well, I'll back up. So at the end of last year, upon the recommendation of Carol and I, we recommended that we declare Mr. Sandbrick in default and take the money that's been escrowed under the development agreement and use those funds to have installed this pipe. Mr. Sandbrick came, like I said, about 2 months ago, I believe. Or the last general meeting, to complain about the township declaring this project in default, and to complain that he had not received notice regarding this work. Having him bring that up, the board then told him that it would be discussed at a later meeting, which is, tonight. In preparation for this discussion, I went back through the correspondence to see, how and when this particular problem was discussed. And it was literally as far back as 2021. Carol brought it up in letters that there was an issue with this swale. And she issued a letter in 2021, that in January, that Mr. Sandbrick's engineer stated, yes, we would address that. It was again brought up in a review letter in December of 2021, in a letter in May 2022, August 2022, two letters in November of 2022, another letter in January of 2023. Mr. Sandbrick then, I believe in March of 2023, requested a waiver, appeared in front of you at the general meeting in March of 2023, requesting a waiver to this requirement that he put in a pipe to handle these problems. That waiver was denied. There was another letter in March of 2023, and there's emails that Mr. Sandbrick provided us in March of 2023 raising this issue with his engineer. So it's both my and Carol's position that Mr. Sandbrick certainly was aware of what was going on. I believe Carol sent additional emails in addition to these letters. There was discussions. So there's no reason why Mr. Sandbrick could not have taken care of this over at a minimum the 2 years that it was at issue. And, we recommended the end of last year, due to his failure to take any action on this, to find him in default, and that's why it was done. Township has not yet done this work merely because it has been such a wet winter. I think we really haven't had a week where it would actually work to get done. But the township certainly still does intend to complete this work as soon as the ground dries out and we have the ability to do so. Did I miss anything, Carol?
Well stated.
And lastly, one last thing. The development agreement contains language not only requiring the developer to undertake all the stormwater management work shown on the plan, but the agreement also says, we are allowed to under the state stormwater law, that if during the process of installing the development, constructing the development, it becomes clear that the design stormwater is not going to work, we have the ability, or to be honest, the township engineer has the ability to say, yeah, this is not going to work. We got to do something to fix it, to propose a fix, and the developer under that agreement is obligated to undertake that fix. So, that's how we're operating here. This wasn't shown on the plan originally because we did not understand the water problems in this area. But as soon as Carol discovered these water problems, she put forth that, we got to put a pipe under this driveway because having water flow over the driveway makes, no sense in the winter when it freezes. Thank you.
All right. Would you like to say something? Yeah, please come up to the microphone and just make sure the button's green.
First of all, thanks, Jason, for letting me know this meeting was going on, and I was on the agenda. But to go back to Peter's timeline, before we broke ground on this project, I live on Alexander Drive. I've lived there since, 2011 maybe. I know the water issue on the on the road. I've seen the water come down. It just doesn't stop. Before we broke ground, I said, I don't think it was to Carol at the time, I said to my engineer, and I have it in an email, this is before the ground was even broken, that, I'm not an engineer, but a pipe is gonna work better in this situation. She went through the elevation and the road and the utilities and you needed an 18-inch pipe or something, it had to be so deep and blah, 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 and blah, blah, and, she's the engineer. I went with what she said, they drew it up, Carol looked at it, Carol approved it. My thought right off the bat was a pipe would work better than a swale. As we built the house with the homeowner, and before we paved the driveway, I said, you know, about the swale, the pipe, I brought it up, I even brought it up to them. I brought the issues up. I brought it up to the homeowner. And the bottom line there was, we'd have to go back, I think I spoke to Carol at the time, and that's when it came up in any kind of a conversation or a letter or whatever timeline he's pulling up. I started that conversation, and she said, okay, well, if you want to put the pipe in, we need a design, we'll review the design. If that's the case, then, you know, that's what we want to do. So I went back to the homeowner and I said, you know, we're building this house, everything costs money, and I already designed this thing once. I already went through a lot in engineer cost for this subdivision. And I said, you know, if you want to pay for the design, we can have my engineer do a design, we'll come back, we'll bring the pipe in, and they said they didn't want to, you know, it's done. If this is the way the plan reads and it's going to work, you know, I can't guarantee it's going to work. I didn't design it. Let's go with it. We put the swale in. So, yeah, it ices up, and we talked about it. And Carol and I walked out there and looked at it, and, you know, no matter how deep the swale is or how far back off the road the swale is, when it snows and the plow comes down the road and it pushes the ice and it's going to dam it up, it's going to come across the driveway. And it might happen with a pipe too, because it's right off the road. So as we talked about it in the driveway, Carol and I and her assistant said, I don't know, there was 3 options. You know, we go back and I forget what the options were. And one of the options was you can, you know, ask for a waiver. It was one of the options, right? And the day I came in and asked for the waiver, I guess the homeowners were notified, the homeowners were here. That's when the homeowners presented their case. So the timeline of that homeowners and the issue has only been about a year or so. Since that meeting, I came in, you all were here, and decided, yes, we need a pipe. It's done at your expense. Nothing I can do about it. I contacted my engineer. My engineer was in contact with Carol. They discussed the pipe. There was no time frame of saying when it had to be done or anything like that. But, you know, as far as I was concerned, I hired my engineer in the beginning, and the ball was, you know, she designed this whole thing. The ball was in her court. And did she drop the ball? Did she not get back? Did she not get the design back? And that's where it stalled. And in the meantime of all this, from the time I asked for the waiver, that's when you decide that, well, you know, well, you had a meeting. Maybe somebody should contact Mr. Sandberg, see what's going on. Was never contacted, and decided we're going to take care of it ourselves. And that's how I found out about it. Was I saw flags, and, you know, I saw the one-call flags. So, I mean, I've been building in this township for 25 years. I have happy homeowners. I build good houses. I'm a man of my word. If it has to be done, we'll take care of it. We'll fix it. You know, the break in communication, what happened between the engineers, happened between my engineer and her. This is where we're at. So I'm coming back to you saying, we'll take care of it. And as I said the last time, if there's obviously a plan out there, there's obviously somebody designed something, because you're not going to go out there and put a shovel in the ground and put a pipe in there without a plan, because nobody's going to build it to that. So my request now is we work together. You would give me the plan, I'll take care of it, we'll get it done. And as you said, it's not going to get done until it's dry. So it's not going to get done spring or, you know, after spring, because it's a wet road. There's water constantly coming down that swale.
Thank you for coming in person and speaking. And so what I'm hearing you say, and please correct me if I'm misstating, is you feel there's miscommunication in the past, but you've come here today and made a commitment that you will do the work.
Correct.
And I also assume that means that you will work with our staff to ensure the work is done to their satisfaction. That would be Carol and Jason. Anybody else needs to be involved? Ryan? Not for this one? Okay. Is that also correct?
That's correct. Just as I had to do any site work or anything else, I had to work with Carol, and Carol had to approve it, and Carol had to have one of her colleagues, oversee what we were doing before we finished it. Absolutely.
And can I also assume you'll commit to getting this done as soon as is humanly possible, given the weather?
I would say weather permitting is the key factor there.
Okay, well, that's all I have. Anyone else?
I do have a question for Peter. Is there anything we should consider with the current development agreement?
Say that again?
Is there anything that we should consider with the existing development agreement?
Consider as in there's loopholes in
No,
it
no,
or
no, no,
something?
no, no,
or-
not a loophole, but there, I think you mentioned something, I'm looking at the notes here.
What I mentioned is there,
We're putting an
there's
extension on it.
language in the development agreement that allows Carol to make changes to the approved stormwater management plans when it's clear that as they're being constructed, they're not gonna work as was anticipated.
I guess so, yeah.
So, I
we're
mean,
still waiting
that's
on
what
the
it,
as-built
that's what it
plans.
currently states, because this is not an unusual problem where once things start getting built, real engineers, builders realize, okay, what we designed here is not gonna function as we hoped. So that was only a statement that saying how, what we were operating under.
Thank you.
Just wanted to clarify a couple things. I seem to remember over the course of last year, it coming up once in a while, hey, have we heard anything from? And the answer was no. And then it was, okay, let's reach out and find out what's going on. Did that happen? I don't know. However, you bought a wet property, so yeah, you're gonna have to spend money to develop it. I know your project because I was there when you first came in. So there's not a lot of sympathy there for me. You also started your land development without permits, and I know that because I got a call from the manager being chair of the board with mud going all over the place, and they had to do a cease and desist.
Well, we had permits, we didn't have.
Whatever you did,
Yeah.
you had a cease and desist, and it held. It was very clear to me that these improvements needed to be done before the winter came. And, pretty much what people commented to me after you were in here in March is, gee, I think that guy just told you to pound sand. To me, I understand you're not happy. Maybe you feel like you weren't contacted by the township over the course of the year. But you knew you had something outstanding, and I don't recall any looping back on your behalf saying, well, gee, we talked about this, what are we gonna do? So for me personally, I don't think it's as one-sided as you were painting it, especially last month when you were here. And I think people need to see both sides of the issue. And yeah, I feel bad you're in a bad position, but there are two sides of the issue.
Do you have any other questions for us about the project going forward?
Well, again, it'll be weather permitting, and then, it also takes us back to, as he just said, builders build things, engineers build things, they don't work out. We do all this work, we spend this money, we put this pipe in, it doesn't work out. Then are we all back here again? What are we doing then?
I can't answer that. I'm sorry. I'm not an engineer, and I can't
And
look into
neither
the
am I,
future.
and that's why I paid the engineer to handle the project.
We'll all do the best we can.
And that's why I would want the sketch from your engineer to show what's going to be done there. I know you guys talked about a trench drain or a pipe. She's got all the survey data out there. She could send me a sketch of what it is you're going to do so that we can authorize it and you can move forward.
So you don't have an authorized plan in hand?
I met on site with the contractor and the property owner, and we measured out and marked out what we would need to do to both meet code and make that work. I would want something like that. I would want that on a plan from Irick and Eberhart because they have the survey data to do that. It's not a big deal to put together, that they can send over to me and say, this is how we're gonna solve it. At the time, back in March, the last time this was discussed, it was my understanding you were more interested in a trench drain type of situation than a pipe that's 20 feet back into the property. So get that to me in a sketch and a plan from Irick and Eberhart so that I can approve it and we can get it done.
Okay?
So just for clarification, I think for the staff and for Mr. Sambrick, I believe Carol's fine with this, I'm fine with this. Do we want to allow Mr. Sambrick the opportunity to get this done once the weather clears? Is that what I mean, this is basically what Mr. Sambrick's request is. I just want to make sure the board is fine with that. And that's how we move forward at this point in time.
So I assume you're looking for consensus.
Yeah, just direction, so we're all on the same page.
Yep, I'm okay with that. But again, you know, if we get into May or June and nothing's happened, we'll be in contact with you again.
Can we at least put a timeline on the agreement of the engineered plans? That's not going to be weather dependent.
No, yeah, I think Carol would like to see him within a month.
Would that be all right?
1 month, I mean, and if I talk to Estelle and she says that's not doable, then I can have her talk to you and you guys can come up with something that's gonna work.
I mean, this is not a big plan. This is,
I know.
this is pretty
But-
minor.
But the ball was in her
So-
court, you know, that's why I'm here.
Yep.
Because I hired them and now I'm here.
So I'd tell them you've got a 1 month window from this board to get plans to me.
Okay?
Is the rest of the board okay with this plan?
Personally, I think, you know, we should have a reasonable deadline when this improvement's gonna be made. End of October? I don't know. Does that give us time if we need to do it ourselves, if it's done the end of October, or is that too loosey-goosey?
I think if you want to set a deadline like that, after which we would take over, I would be looking more for something like August, so there's a chance
Okay.
to do that work.
So September 1? Something? Is that your definition of August? Yeah. I think I would feel comfortable with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with a set timeline.
So, Ms. Sambrick, if we can have a plan within a month and try to get it done no later than August 31st of this year.
And I would just state weather permitting. I mean, again, if it's, we can't grade or we can't dig or we can't,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a swamp right now, but, you know, we have a dry summer, no problem. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
board.
good? Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the award bid for the flood barrier FEMA mitigation project for the sewer plant. Well, this has been going on a long time, a couple of years.
Well, the good news is, we're pretty far along now. 3 bids were received for the project. That's called Flood Barriers at Wastewater Treatment Plant. They were opened on March 26th. The bids and the related documents have been reviewed and tabulated, and the lowest responsible bidder determined to be Dane and Son Construction of Regalsville, with a total bid of $87,540. So the bid documents are complete. The contractor says he is ready to proceed with the project as bid, and I am recommending consideration of award by the board this evening.
Thank you. I just have one question. Since this bid came in so much lower than the other two bids. Can we have anything in writing that will give us some protection against any unexpected cost rises?
Well, you have the performance bond and payment bond for this project that is his guarantee that the work is completed.
His bid is his bid.
Yeah.
They're stuck with it. So, you know, the bonds are there in case they walk away from it. You know, I haven't seen the language, the actual bid language, but I don't think this is a project where we're doing excavating and you can run into rock and that's gonna be, you know, the bid's gonna take that into account. Something like this, he's gonna be locked into all the prices that he bid on, and that's, you know, unless something extraordinary comes up, that's what he's gonna have to do. If he fails to sign the contract after we award him the bid, that's why we have a bid bond. If he fails to complete the work, that's why we have a completion bond. If he fails to pay his subcontractors, that's why we have a payment bond.
That was the only other question I had. Does anyone else on the board have any questions?
Do you know anything of their work?
Personally, I don't, but I called two references, and both of them gave excellent references for the contractor.
So what if we approve this, then when are we looking to have these in place?
There's a lead time on the actual flood barrier components. So it would be later this summer that I would be expecting everything to be installed, assuming that it's awarded this evening.
Okay.
Hopefully well before hurricane season 2024.
Okay.
All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the bid from Dane & Son Construction in the amount of $87,540 for the flood barrier project at the sewer plant?
Chuck Geiser will make the motion as described by our chair.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
No second?
Supervisor Yiser made the motion. Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, next item is the Police Department Phase 1 remodeling authorization to proceed. We had some details on this at our last meeting, and just want to let you all know that the full board had a tour of the police department before this meeting. It was not an executive session. It was just a, right, it's not executive session, no. It was informational. We looked at where they're planning on putting new walls, new doors, and making the alterations. So we would have sufficient information to make a decision at this meeting. Any more questions on this item? Just one thing that occurred to me during the tour, we saw a lot of very, very old carpeting that needed to be replaced. Given all the water we get, it makes sense to replace it with something that is easily cleaned, that's not carpeting. So I'd like to propose that we have the not to exceed up to $15,000 to allow for the inclusion of new flooring in the areas of the police department that are going to be renovated. So I'm going to go ahead and make that motion then.
Can I ask a
Oh,
question?
go ahead.
1 second, Dan. So if we approve, let's say 12,000, which is what the ask is now, and then do another approval for the flooring, is that gonna foul you up?
Well, here, let me,
I'm just not, we don't really know what the flooring is gonna be, and I'd hate for you to have to come back again, but I'm just,
just recognize, that right now, if it's the not to exceed 12,000 number, keeps it under all bidding requirements.
I understand.
But if we go over 12,600, we're gonna have to get telephonic bids. We're not doing a full bid like we just awarded, but, you know, Jason will have to call around, get 3 telephonic bids, and we'll have to take the cheapest. So just for the 5 of you to recognize that, yeah, if we add this onto the project, we're probably gonna push it into the telephonic bids limit. That's gonna be a little extra. It's not prevailing wage, it's not advertising or all like that. So it's not gonna really drive the cost, but it might make life a little more difficult for Jason, that's all.
So can we do telephonic bids for the flooring portion of it? Is that
No,
proper?
because
Now we're
because it's,
slicing it up too much.
yeah, you can't slice up, you know, as soon as you start slicing up a job, that's a big no-no, a big red flag. So if we're gonna do flooring down there, even if it's covering areas that are not being part of this other renovation, you still have to look at it as all one project.
How much leeway was in the 12,000? Like if we went up to 12,600, could we possibly cover the flooring?
Well,
Is there any wiggle room in it?
as you may recall from last week, part of that, I presented a materials cost, which was at 4,200. That additional was to cover HVAC, electric, so it was broken up. It was to be broken up amongst vendors. It's not all of being,
We have to do that, yes.
no, I'm saying that's,
Yeah.
so that was the additional, because we haven't secured.
No, I'm sorry, my question is, the $12,000, was that literally $12,000 to do the job, or is there some leeway built in there?
Like a contingency for
Yes.
that.
I mean, what did the actual numbers come up to?
That was leeway, because I don't know what, for the electric and the HVAC, I don't know what that's gonna cost us yet, so that was,
Well, could we do it for 12,600, and if it's not enough, then what do we do? Because we don't even really know exactly how much it's gonna be.
The problem is, once we go over that 12.6, it's not like the last little bit, that's the part we're gonna have to call around. Once we go over to 12.6, we have to call around on everything. Obviously, the work that our public works people are gonna do, we don't have to worry about. But we would have to, you know, right now, Jason can find, for example, the electrician who the township has used, or, you know, person they like working with, and just know, hey, I like this guy, he's a good guy, he does good work, gives good prices, we can just go with him. But if he signs that person on, signs on the HVAC person, goes out and purchases all the materials, and all of a sudden we're at 13,000, all that work has to be thrown out the window, and he has to start over again. So, that's the issue of going over to 12.6.
Okay, so what you're saying is, this project could cost $12,000, and we'll do the telephonic bids and we're good to go. But it could cost $12,601, and we have to redo everything. So what I think I'm hearing you saying is, we should just assume it's gonna go over 12,600 to be safe.
Yes, if we think we're gonna be anywhere close, before we really spend any money or sign any contracts, we have to nail down, are we under 12.6 or over 12.6?
And there's no way of knowing, because we're gonna be probably close, so we're better off assuming we'll be over.
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha.
You better figure you're gonna be over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just figure.
So is the board then okay with doing the not to exceed 15,000, and then we'll just have to find out how much it's gonna cost?
Are you saying instead of 12,000, 15,000, that includes carpet?
Well, and any other costs, because I think what Peter is saying is, if we go up to $12,601, and we've already done some of the work, we have to kind of like redo everything because we've gone into other territory,
So we're going to be looking for telephonic quotes on
everything,
everything,
except for what our own crew was doing,
which is the
the
the actual construction labor part.
Yep, so not the HVAC, yeah. All right, is the board okay with that, now that we've had that excellent explanation?
I think your not to exceed should be more than $15,000.
I do too.
I would say maybe 20 is a better number. I, going from just a little bit of my experience, but I'm not going to claim to be an expert, so.
I'd agree with you. Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah, Terry has.
I know a little bit, but yeah, let's go a little more higher, then we don't have to revisit it.
And just for the public, the plan is this money will come out of our ARPA funds, it's not coming out of our general fund budget. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, while Dan is doing that, I'm just gonna say quickly, I mean, this is for a reconfiguration of the police space. This is not talking about bathrooms or moving any load-bearing walls. This is, and there are a lot of, as Sergeant, or I should say Chief Cass has pointed out to us, there are a lot of good safety reasons to make these changes, given the situations that they've seen occur over the years in handling people who may be unstable and other situations like that. Sorry, Dan.
That's okay. Green light's on. Just a quick question. I notice this is listed as phase one. That obviously makes me believe there's probably a phase two. So I'm wondering if there are multiple phases of this. Is it possible that some of the work you do now would be affected by the work that you have to do in the subsequent phase? And would it be more economical in the long run to assess both phases of the projects at once? Because if you wind up putting up a wall and then having to tear a wall apart to put a pipe in it for plumbing, I don't know what so I don't know, you're being, not knowing the plans. I know that one of the things that was mentioned at one point in time is they work on add an additional bathroom and stuff like that. That means plumbing, that means electricity. So a lot of times if you do phase one and you got to tear some of it apart to do phase two, would have been more cost effective to get a price for the whole thing as opposed to doing it in two steps. I find projects in my own house usually work out better if you try to do the whole darn thing at once, so, okay, just thought.
And maybe you can ask that question again when Chief Cass is here, and he can give the broad overview. All right, so it sounds like the motion is going to be to authorize the police department phase one renovation at a cost not to exceed $20,000, and further authorize the township manager to sign any paperwork to complete the project.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'll make the motion if that's what you're looking for.
Thank you, and I'll make the second. So Supervisor Yarza made the motion, Supervisor Hexter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you. Next item is Resolution 811, April Safety Month Proclamation.
So this was an email correspondence that I received from Jim Reynolds, who's part of PA One Call System. So what they're asking for is for everyone to encourage everyone getting involved with promoting safe digging practices within our community. The call before you dig process helps prevent injuries, property damages, inconvenient utility outages, and fines. Safe digging is a shared responsibility among excavators, homeowners, facility owners, municipalities, cities, and county level management planners. Traditionally, outdoor projects start in the spring. Pennsylvania 811 Safe Digging Month, which would be April. So as a reminder to all excavators and homeowners, call 811 at least 3 business days before you dig, so the approximate location of the underground utility lines can be identified and marked by facility owners. So they'd asking us to join via a proclamation, where the message is simple: call 811 before you dig. So that's what's in front of you is a resolution or a proclamation stating Pennsylvania, or April 2024 as Pennsylvania Safe Digging Month.
Okay, so doesn't tie us to doing anything.
No.
This is just.
We already, Tommy, our Public Works already responds to the PA1 calls when we get them for the
Okay.
sewer utilities, so this is just kind of a,
Yeah, okay. And what resolution will this be?
it'd be 2024 R-08.
08, okay. Any discussion from the board?
Just, are you going to supplement maybe with something on the website or Facebook, just
Yeah.
announcing this? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things, and it does, I mean, once again, I know we get calls all the time, and obviously, Mr. Sambrick, that was one of the comments when he saw what was going on out on Alexander, was the PA1 call markings.
So we need a motion to adopt resolution 2024.
Yeah.
Thank you. 2024 R-08, proclaiming April 2024 as Pennsylvania Safe Digging Month. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Do I have a second? All right, so Supervisor Holter made the motion, Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All righty. Next, we need a resolution to, this is to approve the grant application,
Yes.
to submit the grant application.
Submit.
Okay.
So
And is this going to be 09?
this would be 2024 R-09.
Okay, so to approve the submission of the application, we've already had all the details on that, and the township's portion, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, is 15%? Right, so the 15% would be $32,904.30.
Marla, so there's an update. I'd put the update next to your packets. So we had an updated amount from Carol as far as what it was sitting next to your.
So the
So the-
updated amount is $34,068.94, and we have to pay the $100 application fee. And also, this money is coming out of our ARPA funds
Correct.
as well, not out of our general fund budget. Is there any discussion from the board? And this is for the drainage.
No discussion other than to say thank you for taking the initiative.
So any questions from the board? We ready to vote? Again, this is to submit the grant. Would someone like to make the motion? So again, the updated amount would be $34,068.94, and that is 15%.
Chuck Yeiser will make the motion as described by our chair.
And I'll second.
Thank you. And again, this is Resolution 2024 R-09. Supervisor Yeiser made the motion, Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, this one's an easy one. We have this is your last vacancy, I believe. Congratulations. So this is to appoint Crystal, please correct me if I pronounce her name wrong, Jarena? That's correct. Garena, hard G, thank you. Crystal, I apologize if you're on. Crystal Garena to the Park and Recreation Board for a term ending 12/31/2024. Any questions from the board on this? Would someone like to make the motion to appoint Ms. Garena?
Also move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Chuck Yeiser will second.
Supervisor Halter made the motion, Supervisor Yiser made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Good news. All right, and the last item should be easy. We have to change our April work session date because State of Pennsylvania decided to have the primary on that date, so it's not going to work.
What I would recommend to the board, and one of the main work session items would be the non-uniform handbook update and non-uniform pension plan. We've been working with Roseanne McGrath. So I did reach out to her, and she offered up, she was available on that April 30th date, which would be the next Tuesday. So that would be my recommendation to the board if you were not to cancel and change that date. And then we would advertise accordingly if the board chooses to change the date.
Is that acceptable to everyone on the board, to have it a week later?
The meeting a week later?
Instead of the 23rd, to have it on the 30th?
So that,
Because the primary is on the 23rd.
so that's the only matters as of this point?
At this point, obviously, we've got a long way to go for the month. But that would be one of the main items that I know the board's been looking for. She is also available for the general meeting. So that, if you want to have that discussion at the general meeting for the April, or excuse me, for May, that'd be another option for the 7th, the 30th.
If we don't have anything else at this point, I would lean to cancel it unless you expect a lot to cover that meeting.
Not at this time. Let's just say nothing major right now, and obviously with a week to go, it'll just make the general meeting a little bit bigger, but once again, I'm not anticipating something else that I would say would be a long talking point.
Could we put those two items then first on our, if we cancel the April work session, because we've been waiting to do those for years. Those are really important. So could we put that first?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Can I just ask a second, more of a Peter question? For something like this, where my guess this is gonna be a lot of technical stuff coming from Roseanne and what Jason has worked on, is it appropriate for the board to have an informational with Roseanne for her to explain all of these things? As opposed to, preceding a public meeting where we talk about it, or what's?
Yeah, if it's purely informational and, no deliberations are taking place and no discussions are taking place, yes, it is appropriate. If you're concerned, you'd like to get a handle on it.
I'm just thinking out loud as the best way to approach these things. I know sometimes when we have things that are overly technical, I don't think that, we dive into it as deep as we normally would because of all the other agenda things that we still need to address in that given evening.
Right.
Well, would it be possible to have maybe that informational the prior week? Sometime the prior week, if she's available? Because this, I hate to delay this anymore. We've been talking about this for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I would say, and that's something we could do.
It'll give us time to digest it. If we have any other questions, we can send them to her and get the answers before April work session, so we're ready to.
Yeah, I think that was the thought of trying to have it before the general meeting, but yeah, I would agree. This is a complete overhaul. I mean, some of it's probably more standard from what any of you've seen, considering the age of our current handbook, but there's a lot of new stuff in there.
Would there be any reason why we'd need a solicitor at that informational session, or is it just HR stuff?
If you're having it the week before, unfortunately.
No, that wasn't the question.
Okay.
The question is, do we need you or someone like you in that informational session?
Yes and
to
no.
understand.
I haven't seen what's being proposed on either, so I don't know if there's any legal issues that would need to be discussed or anything that pops out at me that I would say, hey, this here is a problem, it needs to be fixed.
So, Jason, could you maybe find out if there's anything she can send us
Well, I
sooner rather than later?
yeah, I can provide the drafts.
And then
to-
Peter can look at them.
To Peter. The plan was to provide the board with the drafts, ahead of time so that you guys would have time to take a look at it. And then basically that information gathering would be more of a presentation, I think, that Roseanne and myself would be giving the board. And then, we could follow that up with the May general meeting with questions that you might have. I mean, that's.
So Peter, if you get that proposal in advance, you can look at it and highlight any issues or concerns you might have.
Yes, I could do it that week, yes.
Or at least what I would refer to as major structural changes that would say, no, you need to wait, we need to rework this before you think about it.
Well, the pension plan, that's pretty set in stone, by state and federal law, what has to be in there. So, it's PMRS. So that's really, there's not going to be many legal questions there. That's going to be more policy choices by you as to how the plan's set up. It's probably more the employee handbook that I would need to look at just to make sure there's nothing that jumps out at me as a legal problem.
So it sounds like we have a plan, then we will cancel and again, this is what I'm hearing, we'll cancel our April work session, we will get a draft from Roseanne, I guess as soon as possible, so Peter can look over it, and then we will have an informational discussion with her the week prior to our May meeting, so we'll have time to digest everything, and we'll have the draft before that meeting.
Yes.
Does that sound okay to the board? And just for everyone, the last time we had our HR manual, actually, I think our HR manual was written, what, the 80s? Early 90s?
Yeah.
All that good stuff, so very important. All right.
Just a heads up, if you're gonna try to do an informational that week, I guess we have to vote on canceling the meeting, but it's gotta be, Wednesday or later, right? Because you got a religious holiday on Monday, you got Election Day Tuesday.
So due to Roseanne's availability, I would recommend the 30th. Because I know she's available, because I gave her multiple dates. So that was what she came back with, that 30th date and our general meeting, so.
That's a Tuesday, yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And I would assume not before like 6 o'clock or 6 PM.
So we need a motion to cancel our April 23rd, 2024 work session.
Chuck Yeisel will make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? A second. All right, so Supervisor Yiser made the motion, Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. That brings us to the end of our business portion. I'm assuming there's nothing else. And now we are now in public comment. Go ahead, Phil, I saw your hand first. Go ahead.
Phil Smith, 2 items. First, I'm very pleased that the trail easement donation that my wife and I had offered to the township, we've done the work necessary to provide the township with all the materials that were requested by Peter, and tonight I'd like to serve those documents to you. The only other thing that I think, other than your recording of this easement, that needs to occur is that we would request of the board a letter documenting our donation to the township, so we can use that as a charitable donation on our taxes in the 2024 year. So at this time, I'll provide you with those easements signed and notarized. And you can, I don't know whether it comes this direction or not, they're done as requested. And are there any questions on that this time? The other thing which I'd like to bring to your attention, recently I was talking to Darren Groft, who's the property manager for Nat Lands that handles the Meng Sanctuary. He had informed me at that time that they're in the process of taking down all the posted signs that are present along their border lines and replacing them with individualized signs that represent the way they generally mark their properties. So I said, well, that's all well and good, but the Greenway operates under a cooperative reuse agreement, and in 2018, all the partners in that agreement agreed to post in unison the property lines. So I got in touch with the vice president of preserves for natural lands and had a conversation with him on the phone this morning, and him and I, went over the background, the history of the Greenway, which he did not have a lot of information about, but I provided him with that. And he feels that at this time, or in the near future, I should say, not this time, the partners ought to get together and have a conversation. That means the townships of Limerick and Lower Frederick and Nat Lands get together and meet to discuss the operations. And he said further that, or beyond that, there are a number of things that perhaps ought to also be included in that meeting, that deal with the operations up there. So basically tonight, I'm just presenting you with an informational that you're probably going to get an outreach from Nat Lands to set up some time to meet with the various townships involved. So that's my second public comment. Are there any questions?
No. Thank you, Phil.
Sure.
Sorry.
Thank you
ahead.
for the generous donation, you and Gail.
Hi, good evening. My name is Neil Huntsberger. I live at 113 Colonial Drive. Been a resident there for over 40 years. About 2 years ago, across the street from us, they built a new home. And I spoke to Jason the other week. With all this rain, we are getting flooded in our house. Not in the house, but it's over my driveway, and it does look like a river going down. And we never had that problem before. Now, I know the builder had a landscaper come out at least twice and kept digging the swale deeper and deeper, but it's not working. It's always been there at the one part. Now it's down by my area. The house isn't directly across from me. There was an empty lot between me and the neighbors, but I don't know if anything, if you had any chance to talk about anything. Jason?
I have spoken with our township engineer.
Okay.
I guess I'll pass to Carol.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had some challenges with the new house that's been built
It
there.
looked like,
And they still haven't complied with the stormwater management requirements that were imposed upon them. So they still don't have their permanent use and occupancy permit because of that. So I guess as far as the house on the other side of the street that's not directly across from you, we are working on that.
but it's coming up further now, where I
Yeah.
get my mail. I never had to walk through water. Now, like today, there's an inch or two, and it's just, looks like the Perkiomen Creek is going down between the yard and the next neighbor.
So we have been actually tracking that with a lot of photographs after the rainstorms. And
Yes.
after the rainstorms, there's no evidence of that. So on my way in tonight, I drove by and took some pictures while it was actually raining. So I'm gonna keep looking at that and
Okay. You'd be
keep trying to push the engineer for 118 Colonial to
Yes.
get this solved.
yeah.
Obviously, even if they gave me a good solution today, we've got to wait for the weather to be dry enough for them to
Right,
do the
yeah,
work.
I know. That puddle, that's always been there.
Yeah.
even before they built the house. But now it's out in the road further, and they made the swale deeper, and I had a feeling it wasn't gonna work, because there's
Me
just
too.
no place for it to go, except across the street.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid it's gonna start coming into my basement or something, because these rainstorms have just been terrific, as you know. So, but anyway, that's all I.
Does the manager have your phone number, your contact information?
Yes, he
Okay.
does. He does, and I thank you so much. It was very nice talking to you that day. So, all right, thank you so much, and.
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Burns, Zieglerville Road. So at the last meeting, you guys talked about the Zieglerville Road repair paving, and Carol mentioned that she's working on the documents to put out the bid. One of the things that wasn't discussed at the last meeting was how we're gonna fund this, since it's over the $150,000 that Jason had budgeted. Sounds like, I don't know that I have the exact number. I know, Chuck, you had made a comment as to what you had in your package, so I don't know exactly what the total was for this year, or what it's gonna be for the overlay or whatever, but, okay. Well, I think you said like 460 or whatever, and 230 would be half, or, I'm not sure exactly where the number's laid out, but obviously 230, 200, whatever, is still over the 150, so. I know back in December, I think Mr. Byrd was telling the audience that, we're gonna watch where our budget is, we're gonna make sure, we do everything we can possibly do to stay within the budget. We just raised taxes to help the situation out, so now all of a sudden, we've got this increase on this one project, which it also sounds like maybe whatever next year's budget would have been might not be enough for next year. So I'm just asking the board that question right at the moment. So, what's your intentions, or how are we going to take care of that?
As I told the board, I wanted to get the bid back before we try to figure out how to pay for it. And we're not there yet. The estimation was given by Carol based on the information that she had. So there's a few ways we can look at it, but I don't want to go deep diving until we actually get the bid back and the board's deciding whether or not they want to accept the bid. I think at this point, it would be difficult to say where we would be looking at without knowing what that cost is going to be.
Okay, so based on that answer, I think that brings to the better question here. Obviously, if we were to look for grants, there's plenty of things out there on Zieglerville Road. You have the upcoming sewer, which I believe Carol said is not till 10 years out. I've asked multiple years about the bridge. Is the bridge been inspected? Is it structural? Do we need a weight limit on it? It's already narrow. I've called Jason several times. I was going to call him today. I figured I'll wait till tonight's meeting. The water ponds on both sides of the bridge, because the weep holes aren't fixed. So here again, if somebody comes out there, there's patches marked out over top of it. I wouldn't want to be running the milling machine over top of that bridge. Anything there would have to be peeled off with a backhoe or a track hoe or whatever you're going to use. So you have the intersection of Goshen that does not have handicap accessibility. Carol had mentioned that the township hardly has any handicap accessibility, and that's something that we might have to look forward to later on. So I guess what I'm asking the board is, why don't we just slow the roll here? Why don't we just fix a little bit on Zieglerville Road, a little bit on Springmount Road, and a little bit on Main Street this year? And let's find out how we can spend our dollars wisely. Because if we use our money and attach it to the grant and use it for the match money, we're getting more bang for the buck. We already know that it's a prevailing wage job. So I'm asking the board, I know Jason said already, he doesn't have money scheduled for Springmount Road for repairs. And I'm assuming the same thing with Main Street. So if you guys haven't been out, I suggest go, I mean, honestly, I haven't checked Springtown out. I'm just taking everybody's word for it. I don't use it hardly ever, so. But I know what it's like everywhere else, and I think that would benefit everybody. It would benefit the board in doing the right job for spending the people's money and looking at the project in a bigger phase. You know, I've lived here 33 years. I've been hearing for over 20 that Zieglerville Road is going to be paved. You know what? If I got to wait another year or two so it's done right and it's not dug back up again afterwards, I'd love to have that. So if you guys can take that under advisement, that'd be great. It sounds like you already decided to cancel the work session. I know Marla, last year you mentioned we're going to talk about this year's budget, the capital budget. We're going to do that in April, May. Well, you know, you cancel the April work session, there goes that. The May work session is going to be right before Memorial Day holiday. So I'm sure none of you guys are going to talk about that. So we're going to be into June till we start talking about that particular item. Jason, you mentioned earlier about receiving 15 EDU payments. So where is that money going to? I know because we've talked in the past before that it's a component A, B, and C. And Mr. Bird's asked this question several times. I don't think anybody's ever answered him. I've asked the question several times. Where is the breakdown with this money going? Because I believe A is about $5,100 out of the 74. And if A is something that's going to go for future, then that, I'm assuming, should go into the capital fund?
So currently, for the sewer fund, there's 96,000, because it includes the flood, the barrier project. So, but 100,000 would be for future capital right now, the way it's budgeted. The board could choose to put more into there if they so choose, because it's really an extension of the sewer fund itself. So, but that's currently what was budgeted, was for 100,000 for future as part of the capital improvement plan.
Okay. And then one other question, Carol, you mentioned about the storm project being on hold because of the weather. That's a great idea. One of the things there, I'm figured you thought about it, but there's gonna more than likely be fill dirt being removed. I haven't seen a plan, so I have no idea, but I would expect that there's some fill dirt coming off of that property. And then depending on how the tree guy leaves it, there's gonna be stumps and roots and everything else that are gonna have to hauled off. So I'm assuming you had that in your original quote for I think it was 70,000 for the total project.
That project is being done by the equipment bid, so that material will be hauled and disposed of. There actually was a number in the estimate for removal and disposal.
Okay, great. And then one other thing on Zieglerville Road, we originally owned the water company. Was the swale, the paved swale, installed then, or was it installed afterwards? And one of the reasons I asked that, I don't know, Carol, if you drove Zieglerville today, but you could see the difference on Zieglerville Road with the amount of water going down both sides of the road. There's at least 3 holes, I believe 2 holes from the water company driveway down, and then a property or 2 up from the water company. There's holes in there where you could lose a small kid. Okay, I know Jason said, Tom, you go out and fill some of them before, but all that water undermining that area, I'm assuming since it's within the right-of-way line that our guys are taking care of it, but you know, you don't have it marked out for removal and replacement in your paint marks out there. So just bringing it to your attention.
Thank you.
The swale predates me, Mr. Burns. I don't know how that came to be.
Okay,
But
thank
that
you.
would be the road crew.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? That looks like a no. A supervisor comment?
I have one.
Oh, great.
Yep, I just wanted to thank the park board for a very successful Easter egg hunt. I know a lot of work went into filling many, many, many eggs, and haven't seen that many people at an event in a long time, so good job. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
So, whenever I get the police report, I'm always interested in looking at the traffic, because that's something we talk about a lot here. So on Big Road, the maximum speed recorded in 35 mile an hour was 77. That occurred at 2 a.m., so I don't know if that makes you feel better. But one of the things that strikes me looking at the maximum speed, and people, rightly note that people drive quickly at any given hour of the day, 3 p.m., 2 p.m., 70 miles an hour. So it's happening every hour. There's some cars that are going way above the speed limit, and that's on Big Road, and similarly on Meng and Delphi. You can look at any hour of the day and find some pretty big excursions there too, and that's a 30 mile an hour speed zone. So one question I would have, maybe Jason, you can relay this to our chief, is there's a column on these tables referring to it as sign effectiveness, and there's a percentage number, and I'd like to know what that means. Maybe, at a future meeting, he could just explain that to us. Thanks.
All right, thanks, everyone. Meeting's adjourned.